Hey everyone, today I am in the greenhouse because I'm going to be starting some seeds for fall. It is June 25th right now, and even though this might seem pretty early because summer has just started, this is really the time that we need to start a lot of seeds for our fall garden. Otherwise it'll be too late. So before I get into all the things that I'm starting today, I'm just going to prepare my soil. I just have some normal potting soil here. It's really nice and fine. This is really dry because the bag has been sitting in our greenhouse where there is no moisture. So I am going to add some water to this and let it just rehydrate while I explain the different seeds that I'm starting, because that's going to take a little bit to get fully absorbed in since this is so dry. I'm using potting soil today instead of making my own seed starting mix like I usually do, because most of these vegetable seeds I think will be perfectly fine in a little bit of a coarser soil. This is also a really nice potting mix. It's really nice and fine. And also the other reason is that honestly at this point in the season, after starting hundreds if not thousands of seeds, I kind of just want to do something that's a little quicker and easier. So I'm just going to go with this easier route. I feel like vegetable seeds in general are pretty good in potting soil versus seed starting mix because they are a little bit bigger. I've noticed that a lot of flower seeds are super fine or need special instructions, like they need light to germinate and things like that. So for flower seeds, I do try to make my own seed starting mix that's a little bit more airy and light. Alright, so I have some water mixed in there and I'm just going to let that sit for a little bit. There's still dry pockets and it's going to take a little bit for that water to just redistribute into all of that soil. So while that's going, let me talk about the seeds that I'm starting today. Okay, so these are the main seeds that I'm starting today. Starting off with celery. We grew celery for the first time this spring and it turned out really good. I really like how that did. And this is a little bit more of a cold hardy plant, so I want to try planting this in the fall. I think it'll be really good, especially because in the fall and winter we eat a lot of soup and I make a lot of stock as well, so this will be really good to have for those kinds of things. Next I have a zucchini. This isn't really a fall crop, it's more of a second succession of a summer crop. Our garden beds are jam-packed right now since everything from the spring and early summer is in there. So I want to start one of these plants indoors, keep it safe from the squash bugs while it's young, and then I'll plant it out in the garden beds when some of the space out there opens up. Next I have onions and leeks. We planted these from seed for the first time this spring as well, and they seem to be doing really good. I especially like how the leeks turned out, and I wanted to try growing these in the fall. Both of these are cold hardy. The back of the packets don't say to plant it in the fall, but I kind of just want to give it a try and see. Even if the onions don't bulb up, we can still use them as bunching onions or scallions, so I don't think that this will be a waste even if the onions don't form in the fall. You can also let the onions overwinter if they don't get large, and then I think you can pick them the following spring or summer when the daylight gets longer and they'll start to bulb up. But I think the leeks will be fine even with a shorter day length. And lastly we have Brussels sprouts. This is our first time growing Brussels sprouts, and since our springs get really hot around here, I didn't want to grow this in the spring, but I think it'll be perfect for the fall because just as they're starting to mature, our days are going to be getting really cold and they like that, and I think that's what triggers them to form the actual sprouts and to taste sweeter. So yeah, we're gonna give that a go. I pulled out some other seeds that I'm not starting today because it's still just a little bit too early for us, but I am going to be starting these in either a week or two, so I just wanted to bring them out just to show you what we have on our radar right now. And if you're a little farther into the season, or if you live in a place where your first frost is a little earlier, you might want to start these now. Our first frost is about October 22nd, by the way. So first we have kohlrabi. This is something that we never ate before we gardened, but once we discovered it, we really liked it. We like to eat this raw and chopped up in a slaw, and it's really good that way. Next I have a couple of cabbages. Both of these cabbages we grew last fall and they were really awesome, so I definitely want to grow them again. This one is kind of like more of a standard green cabbage, but it does have this cool like teardrop shape. We got some really good heads of these last year and we turned them into sauerkraut, so I want to do that again this fall. This is like a Chinese Napa cabbage, and we turn this into kimchi, and we also just like to eat it stir-fried or in soups. And this did really well in the fall. It did not do well this spring when we tried to plant it, so I definitely want to plant a bunch of this since we didn't really get to have a lot this spring. The next section is broccolis and cauliflowers. We have a couple kinds. First we have this one, Dichicho. I don't really know how to say it. I think these are supposed to have more of a smaller head, but then create a lot of side shoots. And then this is a cauliflower that's purple. For both of these, we tried them last fall. The broccoli we didn't really have good success with. It might just be the variety and it might just be weather, I don't know. So I'm gonna try both of these again. The cauliflower did do well, but the heads were just a little smaller than what we wanted and what you would get at the store. So we're gonna try both of these again. Even if you don't get large heads for broccoli and cauliflower though, you can still eat the leaves and they're really delicious, kind of like kale or collards. So either way, I think it's a good thing to plant in the fall. And lastly, we have purple sprouting broccoli. This is a really good broccoli variety if you live in zone 7 and up. If you don't have good luck growing heads of broccoli like this, for us, we're not really good at growing the heads, or maybe we don't have the right climate for it, but this does really well, and we grew this for the first time last fall. And this plant stays in the ground all winter, and then when it comes time in fall, you harvest all of these long shoots of broccoli, and they're really delicious. So it's not really like a standard head of broccoli you would get at the store, but it's pretty much the same thing. You just get all of these small little shoots that you cook up the same way. Alright, so now that this soil has been sitting here for a little bit, it's getting nice and rehydrated. It's holding together well when I squeeze it like that. It actually might even have a little too much water, so I'm gonna add a little bit more potting soil. Alright, so I'm just filling in a few of these 4-packs here, which I'm going to use for the Brussels sprouts and celery. And then for the onions and leeks, I'm just using these small little, I believe these are 2-inch pots. For leeks and onions, when you grow them from seed, you can really pack them in there because they separate out really nicely. It's actually one of my favorite things to do. It is so satisfying. So even though this is a small pot, I'm going to jam pack this full of seeds. Alright, so here's what I have, and I'm gonna do 8 plants of Brussels sprouts and 8 plants of celery. I think 8 Brussels sprouts plants is a lot, and they take up a lot of space. But since this is my first time growing them, I just want to leave a little room for error in case some of these don't germinate or if they don't grow super well. I want to have more plants on hand just in case. So I'm just gonna put 2 to 3 seeds in each of these cells. I just like to make a little like dimple in there and then cover it back up. And then for the celery, we're doing 8 as well. We grew 4 celery plants this spring, and honestly that's a lot for us just to eat fresh. We don't really eat it a lot fresh. I did freeze some of it already, and we have that in the freezer that we can use for stews and things. But again, I just want to have this on hand so that I can make stock out of it. And I think it will hold pretty well in the garden in the fall. We're kind of gonna just experiment with that and see how it goes. Celery seeds are actually super small. Everyone says that carrot seeds are really small, and these kind of look like that, but even smaller. And these ones do require light to germinate. That's what the back of the packet says. So for these ones, instead of burying them, I'm going to make a little area in each of these cells. And then I'm gonna try my best to just, actually my finger is wet, so I can kind of just touch and get a few on my hand and pat that in there. probably overseeded, but that's okay. I did my best. And whenever something says it needs light to germinate, I like to cover it with vermiculite, which is this really light material. It allows light to go in, and it also helps to retain moisture so that your seeds can stay moist while they're germinating. So for these ones, I'm just gonna cover them up with a nice light layer of that. Okay, and then we have just one pot each of the leeks and the onions. I'm going to reuse these plant tags that I pulled from the garden from our spring leeks and onions. If you're looking for a good way to mark your plants without the marker fading in the sunlight, this garden marker is pretty awesome for that. I started these seeds at the end of January, and you can still read this, which is pretty amazing. Pencil also works pretty well. If you can see in the corner here, if you use pencil instead of Sharpie, that actually lasts a really long time. It's not as bold, so you can't see it, but it does work. So I'm just gonna reuse these and just update the date. I forgot what day it is, but I think I said it's June 25th. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna seed these pretty heavily. So I have a good handful of seeds in there that I'm gonna put all in this pot. From what I've read, leek and onion seeds also tend to lose their germination rate really quickly. So even if these don't give the result that I want, these seeds do go bad anyway, so I might as well just give it a shot because I'll probably just need to buy new seed next year anyway to get a good germination rate. These are the onion seeds. They have a little bit of like a coating on them, I think just to make it easier to sow so you can see them, and that doesn't affect the seed at all. So same thing here, I'm just gonna sow these really thickly. And for these ones, I'll just do a really thin layer of soil on top. Okay, and that should be good. I just have to label these two. Oh, I actually totally forgot about this zucchini, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill up one of these 2-inch pots for that. Zucchini seeds are pretty big, so I'm just going to put a nice thicker layer of soil on top of that. Okay, so that is everything that I'm starting today. Like I mentioned, our greenhouse does get pretty hot in the summer, so I'm actually going to bring these inside, especially since these are kind of cooler weather things. I think they'll appreciate not being in 100 degrees during the day. And I'm just going to set these under grow lights and actually turn the light on and not wait for things to come up because this celery does need light to germinate. I'm just gonna let these seedlings live on our seed starting shelf. We do have 2 shop lights here, but I'm just gonna turn on one of them right now just until that celery comes up. And once everything comes up, I'll turn on both of the lights. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and seeing what I'm starting for the fall. Now is really the time to be thinking about the fall garden because a lot of these things need to be planted out in July or August if you're in a warmer place, and they'll need a few weeks to get to the point where they can go out. So now is the perfect time to do it so that you don't miss your window. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this video was helpful. Please subscribe for more videos like this, and we'll see you again in the next one.